Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. This meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. Number 3, additions, deletions to the agenda. There isn't anything that I'm aware of. So number 4, approval of agenda. 4.1, recommendation that council approve the agenda for March 24th, 2026 meeting as presented. Someone moved by Councilor Strong, seconded by Councilor Fullerton. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Item 5, approval of the minutes. Recommendation that council approve the March 9th, 2026 meeting minutes as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Babineau.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
But just that there was one small correction, I think, so I'd move the approval with the change on page 2, paragraph 2 of the February 2nd special budget meeting minutes. There's just a misrepresentation. It was captured incorrectly, that the rate increase is 2.9 cents as opposed to 2.9% as it's captured in the minutes. And that same error is just carried over into the next line. So just to make those corrections so that their information's accurate.
We have those corrections made. So is the mover and seconder still good with that? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. 5.2, that council approve the March 10th, 2026 meeting minutes as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Councilor Fullerton, a seconder. Deputy Mayor, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Moving right on to number 6, a presentation. Lunenburg Curling Club presentation on residential tax relief. At this point, it's also down further in the agenda, but I'm going to leave the chair and hand it over to the Deputy Mayor at this point. Declare a conflict.
So I invite Mr. Monroe to the podium to speak to us, make a presentation with respect to the Lunenburg Curling Club residential tax relief request.
Okay, we're good. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Your time tonight. As Rachel said, I'm the current president of the Lunenburg Curling Club. And as you know, we're looking for a grant to offset our property taxes to the end of our lease. The lease was signed 10 years ago. It's a 20-year lease, so it goes to the end of 2036. And what it says is we pay the property taxes and then we pay $1 a year lease. I want to start by saying we don't mind the current deal. Actually, it's fair. We thought it was fair 10 years ago. I'll look back to see if I could blame the person who signed it, and I signed it, so it's difficult to blame him. So we're okay with the lease, but we don't own the land, and we own and operate the building. So we did think one day that it made more sense if we paid a lease and didn't pay property taxes because we don't own the land. And the difference for us would be we could budget the lease easier if we had, I just thrown out a number, if we had $1,000 a year lease or a $2 a year lease, we could pay the lease and not have to worry about the fluctuation of property taxes. So that's where this kind of started. And then we started thinking, well, if we had the $1 a year lease and no property taxes, that would be even better. So we put our rationale together for that. And we came up with 3 things that we thought we would kind of put at you. First is we're not for profit, and we do think we add quite a value to the community. It's a really low cost winter activity. And anybody that has any kids that play hockey know that that's not a low cost winter activity, and curling is pennies compared to hockey. So that's good. It's also good for seniors. It's low cost for seniors. We have kids, our youngest is age 7, and I think our oldest member is 96, I think. So it's we have a lot of seniors, and it's good for any seniors on fixed income as well. We give back to the community, we think. Most of you probably heard of the Curl for a Cause, which was held for 25 years. It was held at our club, but we were just a host venue and they rented the space from us. It was a group of volunteers in the South Shore Health. Last year, they decided they weren't going to do it anymore. So we said the club thought it was a nice tradition to continue. So we thought we would take it on as a club. And we hit it a couple weeks ago and we were tickled to raise $32,000 actually. So we thought that was a nice give back to the community as well. Second reason we kind of think maybe is that we don't ask for much from the town. Every now and then we probably give you a phone call and can you come over and slap a little pavement here or give us a parking sign here or something, but we don't ask for a lot. And we kind of compare ourselves to the rink across the parking lot, and we know how expensive that is. We're not as big an operation as the arena. We're not looking for anything like that, but we kind of think, well, we're both rinks, we're both open for 5 months out of the year, and we don't ask for much. That's our pitch there. And the last one, which we didn't put in the letter, I think because we want it to be more focused on, we don't own the land, so we'd rather have a lease, but we do have a lot of expenses coming up in the near term. Our equipment is seems to be getting to the end of its lifespan, a lot of it. And so if we had a $4,000 a year, which is approximately what the property taxes are, if we had a $4,000 a year relief from that, that would go a long way towards the equipment we're going to have to purchase in the next few years. So that's kind of it. Bottom line is we think we add some value to the community. We don't think we ask for much, and it would be very helpful to have this little relief. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you.
I just start off by saying I think we're probably all in agreement or acknowledge what you contribute to the community by way of offering recreation activity and social and leisure activity for people within the community, and that's a value in addition, or then in addition the activity, that fundraising for the fishermen's and whatever else you've done over the years contributes to the community in a very positive way. So very much appreciate that. But are there any questions of Mr. Monroe? Councillor Daphne.
Craig, what does miscellaneous income?
In the budget,
Yeah, 20,000.
should have had Lola here. I have to think about that for a second.
That's
I'm not
fine.
sure off the top of my head.
I'm sure Liz can
what she
speak.
puts on
Liz will
it.
If you don't know, that's
I
fine.
don't know. I'm trying to think. We talked about, I think I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
not sure off the top of my head what Lola puts on there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
If there's nothing else, we do have this up for discussion a little bit later on our agenda. So thanks very much. And there is lots of information here. So, I mean, I think we were able to, if there are other questions, we certainly.
I prepared for a whole bunch of other ones.
We certainly know where to find you, but it is nice to see, all of the income statements and the budget and so on presented for our perusal, and give us the opportunity to have a look at how the club is run and what happens there by way of what we see itemized in those documents.
Our understanding is we're in pretty good shape for most rural curling clubs in the province. Tracy Froud, who is very connected with the curling community, when he moved here, he said you guys are in really good shape. So we're quite comfortable where we are. We just real quick, we probably got about $100,000 of upcoming expenses in the next couple of years. We have 3 this year. We have a leak in our chiller that we had a $15,000 quote for. We have a brine leak in a pipe. That's a $15,000 quote for from Simcoe. And we think we have another leak somewhere that we have to get an ultrasound machine to try to find. I'm going to guess Simcoe is going to tell us that's $15,000. And our sprinkler pipes, we just did our 50-year sprinkler head thing a couple of years ago, but the pipes are not great. And we have a $55,000 quote on the table for that. So that's got to be done at some point. And Simcoe told us that our compressor has probably got 3 to 5 years. And I don't know exactly what a compressor is, but I know 10 years ago, we were told our reconditioned one would be $25,000. So we'll be okay. We'll get grants, and I'm not coming over here with a hat in hand saying that we need things, but $4,000 a year would certainly be helpful.
Thanks very much. Oh, yep. Okay, Councillor Strong.
I like the pluses that you give to the community in what you're just saying, but as someone that attended the Curve for the Cause this year for the first time ever, that really did something bigger than what it ever did before, I felt, because, or I had been to, I'm admitting that I've been to other ones, but people were going there just for the breakfast.
Yeah,
So
we were
I think
amazed.
it's, as far as community building, it's a really important part of the system.
We were shocked by how many I think it was 200. We were shocked. There's only 94 curlers. So we were quite shocked by the breakfast. That raised $2,700, I think the breakfast did. So
Well done. So breakfast might be on the menu for another year.
I think I think we're going to get it next year. Yeah.
Right. If that's everything on that one, I'll ask the mayor to come and retake his chair.
Thank you. So we'll move on to 7 is the operating budget, public input and correspondence. So there's nobody signed up on the public input part. I just checked the lists. So if somebody has came in since that list was put or missed it, you can certainly speak now. This is your 3-minute public input time. If anybody wants to talk on that. Or anyone wants to talk about the budget. Okay, we'll move on then to 8.
Sorry, your chair, just, you might want to note the letter that was received.
Oh yeah, there is a letter from George Case under correspondence on the mill rate and property tax, but unless someone from council wants to discuss that or make a motion on that, it's just correspondence. It's there for the record. So does anyone have anything they want to comment on there? Okay, so we'll move on to 8. Which is, I have to get up again, Lunenburg Curling Club Funny Request. Okay, so Deputy Mayor.
So yeah, sorry about that. This is the curling club request is reappearing on our agenda at this juncture because it is where we're looking at all things that may impact our budget. And so were we to consider this particular request this year, it would have an impact on our budget and would have to be considered in the budget process. So when the information came to us previously, there was the report from our staff that indicated that currently there is a bylaw under which there have been similar requests granted or different forms of property tax forgiveness, bylaw number 43. But it's a bit outdated, and the MGA reference to this now permits a policy to replace the bylaw regulation of this type of financial arrangement. So it may be helpful for council to have the opportunity to have a draft policy before them before considering a request. This particular request. Otherwise, we will have to look at what it will do to this current budget year. So I would look to other members of council to provide further comment or their perspective. Yes, Councillor Babineau.
So is the suggestion there that we would sort of table this until staff is able to come back with like a draft policy that would replace that bylaw? And I guess in terms of the curling club, it doesn't sound like there's a particular urgency to this. So I would be fine with that personally.
Comments from any other members of council on that?
Just to echo what Councillor Babineau said, I think it's probably a good idea. We've had similar conversations surrounding other policies, as in the grants policy and so on. And I think that, if we were to look at all of these policies as not all together, but with the view that we're trying to make them as beneficial to groups that contribute so much to the community, I think it's worth taking a look at. Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Fullerton. Yeah, Councillor Strong.
But we do need to know this for the purpose of our budget.
We need to know if we want to enact any kind of forgiveness for this year, because the current tax arrangement they have would been what's been used in the calculation of the draft budget we're discussing.
And can you anticipate, or through the chair, can staff anticipate how long it would take to develop a policy? And I am fully in support of a policy, as bylaws really drive me crazy. So
Through you, Chair, it would depend on what council establishes as the level of priority for it. Hey, like again, going back to your motion action list, you're probably still looking at for a policy development to come back. You're still probably talking a month to 2 months for research to bring it back. So you're probably talking maybe committee of the whole in June to have a discussion on it. If the other option is if you go through the other way, which is bylaw process, it's back to having like a public participation, a first reading, and going through that process. So just so you're aware with what your options are.
so that option actually precludes having something for this year's budget.
Yeah, so it's a challenge making a decision on this now. It's I had a look at the policy. It's kind of all over the bylaw number 43. It's kind of all over the place. There's not a lot of rationale provided for how much and to whom and for what. So I think those are the kinds of they're criteria to ensure consistency and a level of fairness based on predetermined criteria or rationale would make some sense, which could be developed in policy based on, what perhaps some of the history that went into the ones that are currently exempted to various degrees currently. But I think to pile on that without having a broader look at what should be covered in a policy, I think we may be, digging a bit of a deeper hole than we may be in now, recognizing. I know, for example, in the bylaw, there are organizations mentioned that don't even exist anymore. So, but the rationale for their exemptions, I don't know. It didn't seem to indicate, other than that there is a community benefit, and that's a very broad term. So we may want to ask staff to help us, find the appropriate considerations to go into what should form the policy.
Well, breakfast a year, maybe. So I don't see any option other than option A for this year only. And then we would have the policy in the new year. If anybody sees otherwise. If we need it for the budget this year.
Through you, Chair, just so you know, if you go in that direction, we still have to go through the bylaw process to go through first reading and all, because it is under a bylaw right now. The goal would be is if we go to a policy, we would have to rescind the bylaw, move everything from the bylaw into a policy format and outline those with the criteria that you want to establish. I mean, I can ask finance if there's anything different here, Lisa or Kathleen, if you have any other comment, but at this point in time, we would still have to go through a bylaw process to add them to it and to reduce the 4,000 grant.
I agree that you would have to, if you want to do what option A is, that you'd have to do a bylaw change, which is quite a lengthy process. If you were to take it into policy, you can develop criteria around what organizations you have and what they bring and how you can give them different levels. So yes, that is exactly correct. You would have to do a bylaw change if you did option A. And Lisa, did you have?
All I was going to note, and I hope the sound is okay. I'm getting a lot of feedback on my end, but I was just going to note that if council wished, we could make allowance for this in the budget, assuming that the policy or the bylaw change were coming forward, if that was something council wished to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Dagley and Ms. Ravius. I think for me, I have no problem with giving this serious consideration, but I do have a problem with a grant, which would in essence be another grant, issuing a grant without some criteria wrapped around it and without sort of some level of comfort that this fits within a framework, a policy framework that we can then replicate and stand behind for future requests. So to Councillor Babineau's point, that I got the same impression that this is a request that may have been kind of a long time in the making, and but thankfully, as was pointed out, the club is well run, and there's not. They're not in dire straits, and so there's not that sense of urgency. And so I appreciate this trigger to have us look more fully into the policy and then have that in place to address their request and any potential future requests that come as a result, because that may well happen as well. So that would what I would suggest then would be a motion to defer the request for consideration once a policy is in place that deals with this type of tax forgiveness as is permitted in the MGA. Anyone? Yes, Councillor Babineau? No. From the chair, I'm not permitted to make one. So the motion would be to defer the request to be considered under a new policy as would be forthcoming to replace bylaw number 43. Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Fullerton, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Daphne.
Just so that I'm clear, the policy can be written and brought back to us and we'll be all ready for next budget time. Like that's okay.
With that clarification, anything else? All in favor? Any opposed? I'm going to coordinate my finger here. Motion's carried. Thank you. And I will invite the mayor back to his chair again. And he can stay here this time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now we'll move on to 8.2, draft water utility operating budget. Lisa, or who's up?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I just wanted to say that council reviewed the water utility budget back on March the 9th. My apologies. There were no clarifying questions posed to staff. Since that time, council considered a water rate application on March the 17th based on that same budget. We just got the hearing order late yesterday afternoon for May the 27th. And advertising will go out early in April to the public. So staff are seeking a motion to approve this budget, which is outlined in the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Lisa on the water utility operating budget? Councillor Strong? No, I can't see anything right now. The sun's right now.
There's, just to satisfy my own curiosity, have there been any changes from what we looked at before?
For the water utility budget, no.
Deputy Mayor?
Just a question with regard to the meter reading process. Some meter reading is required now for the commercial meters, but that job is going to grow when we have all of our other meters installed, or perhaps not. I'm just wondering if there's any increase in costs expected with that change in function.
Tyson, did you want to take that one?
I can answer that one through the chair. So at the moment, there is reading that happens either with those commercial meters you mentioned, either our water resource operators make appointments to get in to physically access the meter and read it, or else some of them have a touchpad on the exterior of the building that they can access much more easily. But in terms of the new system, many more meters to read, but with the radio signals, it's really just a matter of setting the route and driving past, and the reader that is part of the Neptune contract is tied into a laptop. It downloads it, and from what I understand, will give it to us in a format that we can just pass straight on to finance and allow Kathleen and Jacob and Lisa and their department to do their work. So I don't think there would be a significant increase in time, especially once we have the process in order.
Any other questions from anybody? I just want to again thank staff for putting this together, and I will say a week ago, I guess there was so many meetings, I'm sort of running them together. I think it was last Tuesday, 17th. It was a very detailed water utility rate study report presented by the consultants. So again, it certainly answered, I think, a lot of questions around this table. And if anybody watched it or saw the report, it was very detailed and easy to, they made it so that we could actually understand the numbers that were all there. So again, I'm quite happy with what I see in the water utility. I think by doing what we're looking at doing, we don't fall into the trap that some municipalities have done and had to go for like a 30% or 40% water rate increase all at one time. I always say it's much better with very, very small increments annually than not doing any increments for years and then being stuck with the whammy, because nobody likes that. So again, I want to thank the consultants and staff for working with them, because I think that report was very detailed. So if there's no other questions, there is a motion in front of us that council approve the 2026-27 water utility operating budget as presented, totaling $1,881,000. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Strong, a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Daphne. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now we'll move on to the draft town operating budget and reserves, 8.3.
Thank you, Your Worship. There is a cover memo with the draft budget before council this evening for consideration. And I have a few notes to take council through that memo. So the budget was previously reviewed by council on March the 9th. And this memo brings forward the additional information discussed that evening. So the first item was for a comparison information from the town of Bridgewater and the town of Mahone Bay for low income exemptions. And that has been included for council's reference during deliberations. Council also asked for year-over-year staffing comparison chart, and that has been included. The two new positions that were pre-approved by council are included in that summary. And there were a couple recreation rates that were noted for change at the last meeting. The soccer and baseball field rentals are now at the same rates, and the drop-in badminton and pickleball rates have been matched as well. Those changes have been incorporated into the rate schedule that is included in the version 2 of the draft budget in the agenda package this evening. Additionally, the hourly rate for the community center auditorium has been increased as outlined. I didn't know, Your Worship, through you, if there were any questions to that point before we dive into some of the reserve conversation.
Are there any questions by anyone around the table? Deputy Mayor?
I just want to thank staff off the top for all of this additional information. I think it was very helpful. Looking at the comparisons for our low income tax relief, I was pleased that we are offering a much better value for our citizens, which I think is a good thing. I was curious to know, and I know if this was captured somewhere else, but just how many property owners we have who are eligible or who have actually been able to take advantage of this program in the past. I'm always a little concerned that people who are in I don't like to use the word in need. I'm trying to think of a better word, but who could make use of this, that they know about it and do take advantage of the relief that we offer. But I have no sense of what that might be. So if there's any information on that, I'd appreciate knowing.
Certainly through the chair. I don't have the exact number from last year, but it's in the 40 taxpayer range. And certainly each year, anybody that's previously had that application gets a copy when their tax bill goes out. And it's also advertised on the town's website, etc. For that. And maybe Mr. Deans could also include it in an upcoming newsletter when tax bills are going out this year with that addition.
No, that's impressive to me, actually. So thank you very much. Good to hear.
Thank you. Anything else? One suggestion that just came to my head now while we're talking about this is I wonder if between this year and next year's budget, we might offer to do, and I don't want to volunteer staff, but I sort of am, offer to do a lunch and learn. They have lunch and learn at the parish hall, which attracts a wide variety of citizens who you can come and they get guest speakers of LAMP or other organizations. I think so. Maybe we could do a lunch and learn. Offer to do a lunch and learn next year in like January, February. They're always looking for speakers, and I think you'd get quite a few people out to that because I think a lot of people, quite honestly, that would be around that threshold don't even realize they qualify for anything. So that might be an opportunity where people would learn, like an educational opportunity. So I don't know what everyone thinks of that, but I don't think it could hurt anyways.
Through you, Chair, we'll take it back and we'll speak with staff on what opportunities we can come up with here. So.
Excellent, thank you. So no other questions there. We'll move on to the next part, to the reserves, Lisa.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. So during the discussion around the reserves, there was a request for a specific project example. So taking the Tannery Road Culvert project, staff have outlined how this project, with an estimated cost of 4.9 million, could be financed. Using the assumption of a 50% grant, the town would be required to fund $2.4 million for this project. To finance that amount with debt at 5% interest would cost the town $976,000 in interest over the 15-year term. To have an average expenditure of $278,000 per year in principal and interest payments. Based on our current assessments, that is a 5 cents on the tax rate. If council increased the tax rates now, while that project was being designed and constructed, the town would have $1,139,000 towards the project at completion and only have to secure $1.3 million of financing versus the 2.4. This is just one example of several unfunded projects. And it is important to note that even with this example, there is a significant amount assumed as grant support. But this would allow the town to save roughly $500,000 in interest that could be used to other projects that would benefit the community. So that is outlined in item 4 of the staff report. Moving on to item 5, there is a summary of the reserve options previously discussed on March the 9th. And I have added 2 additional options based on council discussion. Option D provided a gradual increase. So that would be 3.3 cents to each year of the rest of council's term to bring to the 10 cents. And option E outlined the example above for a specific project on the Tannery Road. All of the options outlined in the chart have included the 2.1% CPI adjustment to the tax rate, which is needed to balance the operating budget for 26-27. Additionally, council asked for the residential tax impacts with adjustments for assessment growth, and those have been included in the chart under item 6. The chart outlines the impacts with the tax rate increase of 2.1% CPI adjustment, and it also outlines for each of the various reserve options. These properties are capped residential assessments are in that example. That takes council through the additional information that was requested. And through you, Your Worship, happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions around the table? Any questions or comments? There are options here and choices. Deputy Mayor.
It's me again. I always have more questions. Anyway, again, thanks to staff. I think this is very helpful. Some senior staff may recall that I really like real numbers as opposed to percentages, which confuse the heck out of me, and it takes me a while to sort of grasp what we're talking about. So I find it really helpful to know what the dollar amounts actually, the percentages equal in dollar amounts when it comes to, examples. And I've worked it out for my own situation as well, just to give me a sense of what the impact is. I very much appreciate the example provided of demonstrating what it means to have capital reserves in place, and the longer term impact of that and the benefit of that. And I think you've you certainly demonstrated the advantage of doing that. So appreciate that too very much. My concern with, well, I have some questions, but my concern, I guess, overall is the amount of our budget. The total amount of 11.8 million in round numbers represents an increase, not a huge increase over last year, but if we look, 5 years back, it's a very significant increase. We've gone from 7.5 million to over 11.5 million in that period of time, which is a huge increase. And we've been able to cover that off without raising the tax rate for the most part, because assessments have risen. But when assessments rise, that still means that our citizens are paying more. So we've had some money coming in, and I really in order to look at further tax burden on our citizens, I have to have an understanding or a level of comfort as to how we got here. So I fully appreciate, having sat through the water rate study, that we need to rate to pay for that very valuable utility. It's critical. There's no question. But my water rate's going up by $15, $16 or whatever, and with this increase, and it will be going up again. That's not a lot to pay for that valuable service, but it's an increase. We've talked about electric utility increases as well, which are being shouldered by our citizens. And I'm not opposed to a rate increase, but then a rate increase plus a further increase to cover off the capital reserve fund leaves me wondering, were there not opportunities in the past 5 years when those prices were going up? Or can someone help me understand how we got here? I know I appreciated the fact that most of the increase that we're incurring this year is human resource costs. I know we've had to get up to speed with what we pay our staff. And so, and some of those things are unavoidable. We rely on staff. We need good staff. We have to pay them in order to ensure we have good, strong people serving our citizens in the community. But what else? That's only a portion. So over the past 5 years, what else have driven up the costs to, I don't know, my estimate was around 35%, I think, over the past 5 years. So that's my hesitation in going further and raising the rates that we charge our citizens at this point in time.
Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Daphne.
I'm not as eloquent as the deputy mayor. So I been asking a lot of questions, looking for some help, and I do feel like the deputy mayor. I do need to understand a little bit more and ask a little bit more questions. But I also know that, being a what if person, that we need to have some money set aside. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I know, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I don't think I am. I know we're asking a lot of the residents, and it kind of angers me that we, this council, are in this position, and asking a lot of our residents, but that's the hand that we've been dealt with, and we have to try to figure something out. I am for a rate increase, but until I know a little bit more, I don't know how, what, where, and when. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Babineau.
Thank you. So I agree with some of my counterparts who have spoken already. I mean, I know that a rate increase is needed, and I fully support where staff have gone with this, and I so appreciate all of the work that I know that this has probably taken. But I feel the same in that large increases, all of a sudden, after many years of no increases, not only do they tend to not sit well with folks, they also don't generally sit well with me. And one thing that I went back and looked at was our municipal financial indicators over the last few years, actually. And the only area in which we come up with not a big green thumb for being low risk is in our residential tax effort. So to me, that is showing that even the province is recognizing that we have very little wiggle room with regards to how much we can put more tax burden on our residents. So I am hesitant myself to sort of go any further than the 2.1% increase at this time, but that's just me and how I feel. So
Anybody else? Okay, Deputy Mayor, sorry.
I have some specific requests other than that, my very general broad sweeping one of earlier. But I did wonder, there was in previous, and I think it might have even been in the last slides, I meant to check, there was the pie chart. And I think that's very helpful. So having the opportunity to see that again, to get an understanding of where all of those tax dollars are going. Many of them, and I do know, and I guess I want some help in justifying the increases. So things like RCMP costs went up like 6%. I think that was just this year. So I'm sure they're part of the drivers that have caused the increases in the past. So kind of just, again, level of comfort as to where those cost increases are coming from would be helpful. And just for the now, the pie chart is always really helpful to get a sense of that. And a question to that point too, just to refresh my mind as to how these things work, those kind of costs are generated with formulas based on uniform assessment somehow. Is that accurate?
Education is based on uniform assessment,
Uniform.
so that is what the province says is our ability to pay. Our CMP is a different formula, and I am not really familiar. I know it's so much per officer, but I don't, off the top of my head, recall what the exact formula is for that one.
I think some of that might be in the notes too, to refresh my memory. But I guess I was asking the question about uniform assessment because I was curious or was trying to remember if that's based on the capped amount or the total amount of our assessment, because my inclination would be that it's the full amount of our assessment, which puts us at a bit of a disadvantage in that we're not recouping from the full amount of that assessment. But I don't know that I'm right there. Okay.
But I will check that and
Yeah.
verify for you.
That's okay.
Okay, I basically have a couple comments, but I do have one suggestion that I know everybody's anxious for us to put a number in these little blanks here and approve the tax rate tonight. And I know staff really wants us to do that, but my suggestion would be to hold off until after this upcoming weekend. We are having strategic sessions this weekend coming up. And also one of our colleagues is away on vacation and who would like to be around the table when we finalize this. So if we defer this till after our strategic weekend and have it at our meeting in early April, that'll still be, if we do pass it at that meeting, it'll still be the earliest in my 15 years of experience in municipal government that we've ever passed a budget. Some years we've aimed for May, some years it's got past the middle of June, and I think the first year that I was running, they passed it in the summer because of everything that was going on. So I think if we can get it passed by the first week or two of April, that should be fine because we're really only a couple of weeks into our new year. So that would be my suggestion, number one. Number two, I'd just like to add that, based on the charts that we have in front of us, the lowest income house they show is 250,000 assessed value, which is there's probably not a lot of houses right now in the town of Lunenburg assessed at $250,000. There'll be a bunch of us probably capped at that or less, but not a lot that's actually assessed at that amount or lower. So just the average citizen that would own the least valued assessed house in the town, their expenses alone are going to go up if we, even at 2.1% with the water increase and the taxes, it's going to go up about $20 a month. Then you throw in the electrical increases that we all know we have to have. So say $25 or $30 or more a month. That's, a significant amount to a lot of people. And the other thing that I warn us all about is nobody knows where the cost of fuel and oil is going in the next 6 months. So right now it's at one of the all-time highs that I can remember. And don't kid yourself, everything you buy, I don't care what it is impacted, especially food, is impacted by the cost of fuel. So if that keeps going up, the cost of people just to survive and live is going to increase, insignificantly. So the biggest problem is that we have here is that I've said this many a times. If your expenses keep rising, like your education rates and your RCMP contracts and your wages go up like they do under contract, and you hold your income and your rate like we did for 5 or 6 years, we get ourselves in this position. But again, nobody wants to solve this or try to solve it in one swoop, and then this isn't the time. So I certainly would support the 2.1% CPI increase. I think it was a mistake. I was here for 2 previous budgets, but it was a mistake that we didn't do it by CPI the last couple of years. I understand why we didn't do it during COVID. I totally get it. And there was enough money being thrown around there that the town probably didn't have to do it during COVID. But I think now, unfortunately, the rubber's hit the road, reality is striking, and, we have to do something. So I'd rather hold the rate if it was my choice, if we could, but financially we can't. So, unless something changes over the next week at the strategic sessions, I'll be leaning towards the 2.1% increase at this point and no more. I really think that a lot of things I appreciate and totally understand where staff's coming from, and I want to thank them for all their time. But also, as we've seen 6 years ago, a lot of things can change in the next 3 years. So to predict what we're going to need in 3 years' time, is hard. And quite frankly, if we don't get other levels of funding from other levels of government for some of these real big projects, they probably won't happen unless they absolutely have to, right? That's the reality of it. A town this size is never going to be able to afford a $15 to $20 million standalone project on their own. The citizens won't be able to afford it. So again, a lot of this rate increase or rates down the road increase is going to rely heavily on our partners. And as we've learned this past month, that can change with the blink of an eye with your funding partners. So again, that's where I sit. But if council is in agreement, and again, I want to thank staff for everything they've done, but if council is in agreement, I'd love us to defer this until after this upcoming weekend, because it's really, I think, doesn't make a lot of sense to pass a budget for the next 12 months and then sit down 3 days later and talk about your strategic planning for the upcoming year, because we've basically passed it tonight. We can't really do anything outside of these pages in front of us. So who knows what we'll come up with this weekend. So that would be my suggestion. Is everybody, can we have an agreement around the table that that's what we do? Deputy Mayor?
I'd make a motion that we defer the decision on the budget until we get some more information as requested, and until after we've had a chance to have our strategic discussions. And I think, as was this is not part of the motion. As was stated, this is our opportunity to double check on whether or not our priorities as a council for the community are being realized through the budget that's been set forth or being presented to us in draft. And so I think there are probably some questions that will come to mind when we have those discussions to ensure that we can ask of staff to make sure we're sort of covered off on what's included in the operating budget. So to your point, I would like to have it deferred.
It's removed and seconded by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Now on to 8.3.
Should be 8.4. Sorry, the numbering's a little off.
Okay.
We had an 8.3. It should be 8.4. 8.5 going
I was
forward.
gonna say, I have it marked 8.32. So 8.3, paragraph 2 or whatever, carryover projects from 2025-26 town capital budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening I have a report on 2 carryover projects from the 25-26 town capital budget. So there's a recommendation in the report that council approve the carryover of the town hall exterior restoration, the roof replacement project in the amount of $310,000, and the Brook Street lift station upgrades project in the amount of $215,000 from the 25-26 town capital budget into the 26-27 town capital budget. Funding sources for both from deed transferred taxes. So background on this, back in May 2025, council approved 27 capital projects within the town budget. Since that time, staff have put a lot of work into trying to execute that budget. As we were getting ready for the 26-27 town and water utility capital budgets, it was apparent that some of those projects wouldn't be completed. And those were included in the budgets that council passed on February the 2nd. Recognizing that passing that budget on February 2nd, the prep work that staff did sort of was at the end of 2026, and we were still hoping to get a couple of projects done. And as we're getting pretty much to the end of the year now, it's apparent that those won't be completed. So we're looking to add those to the list. And the 2 projects are the town hall exterior restoration and the Brook Street lift station. So the town hall exterior restoration, the roof repairs, council awarded this tender back in September. The contractor had there was just some time required to get the materials that they needed and the forces they needed to do the work. They started in January, and since that time, we haven't had a lot of cooperation with the weather. And also they started working on the exterior and found additional items that weren't apparent when the work was tendered. So again, we've got a contract that's signed with the contractor. Work still needs to be done. And we're hoping to get this work completed in the spring and have the big improvement that would provide. With the Brook Street lift station, so this had 2 components. One was the structural improvements to the building at the sort of, I call it the harbour end of Brook Street. And that work was performed in-house by Public Works. So that work we've been able to go ahead and perform. There was a second part of that scope that was the replacement of the pipe, the mechanical pipe that's in the wet well that forms part of that force main system. So we're almost ready to release that work now. We're running into a time of year where it's It's probably not ideal timing where we're in the spring weather where we can expect rainfall, and it's a lot of a combined system, right? So, yeah, it's unfortunate we haven't got to that one yet this year. Just with all the other wastewater projects going, the plant's been a big commitment, and I'm not trying to make excuses here, but you can't do everything at once, particularly with those system upgrades. This is an important project though, so looking to carry that over as well. As I said earlier, both these were included in the 25-26, both funded with deed transferred taxes. In the case of the Brook Street lift station, the original budget was 230,000. We've spent about $15,000, give or take, on the above ground improvements, and the plan is to release the RFP for the wet well work. But anything over $100,000 would come back to council to be awarded. So you still have control of that part of the process. So that concludes the report. If there are questions, I can answer them.
Thank you, Tyson. So basically, there's a recommendation there in front of us. If someone would like to make that, it's not asking for more money. It's just asking to move the money from this year to next year. So to next week, to be quite honest. So, Councillor Babineau.
I'd be happy to make that motion, but first I just wanted to say, Tyson, that 2 out of 27 is really great. So actually, you guys should be proud of yourselves for all the work that you've gotten done. But also, I would be happy to make that recommendation. That council approve the carryover of the town hall exterior restoration roof replacement in the amount of $310,000 and the Brook Street lift station upgrades project in the amount of $215,000 from the 2025-26 town capital budget into the 2026-27 town capital budget. Funding sources for both are from deed transfer tax.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much, Tyson. And again, thank you and thank all the staff. I mean, once again, just last weekend, who saw that coming, right? So, people aren't really even able to enjoy themselves on on the weekends or evenings when these snowstorms roll in. And I know how conscientious all your staff is. So again, thank you very much, because that one came sort of out of nowhere. I think we all thought winter was gone about 10 days ago. So we'll move on to, I have 8.4, but I guess it's 8.5. Municipal finance spring debenture submissions, electric utility.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can do a bit of a summary for council. However, these are a bit of a procedural item as they've been previously approved by council, and this is with debt financing, and this is just the process to get that financing secured.
Yeah, I think we just need a recommendation at this point, unless somebody has any questions for Lisa. It's basically just filing paperwork, but Deputy Mayor?
I'd be happy to read this big, long.
Oh, certainly, I was going to do that, but.
Oh, no, well, if you want to do.
Please for you to do it, Deputy Mayor, if you'd like.
Okay. I knew it had to be read, so if someone has to do it, I'll bite the bullet. But move that council approve a temporary borrowing resolution of $9,642 for the financing of the feeder upgrade extension of 81W-233 to Dufferin and Phase 1, 25-26 of the Green Street double circuit for this. Am I reading the right one? Okay, for the spring debenture issue application for Schedule 1. And Schedule 1 is the temporary borrowing resolution Whereas Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act provides that the Council of the Town of Lunenburg, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, may borrow to expend funds for a capital purpose as authorized by statute. And whereas the Council of the Town of Lunenburg has adopted a capital budget for this fiscal year as required by Section 65 of the Municipal Government Act, and are so authorized to expend funds for capital purposes as identified in their capital budget. And whereas the specific amounts and descriptions of the projects are contained in Schedule A attached, be it therefore resolved that under the authority of Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act, the Council of the Town of Lunenburg borrow a sum or sums not exceeding $2,009,642 for the purpose set out above, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. That the sum be borrowed by the issue and sale of debentures of the Council of the Town of Lunenburg to such an amount as the council deems necessary. That the issue of debentures be postponed pursuant to Section 92 of the Municipal Government Act, and that a sum or sums not exceeding $2,009,642 in total be borrowed from time to time from any chartered bank or trust company doing business in Nova Scotia. That the sum be borrowed for a period not exceeding 12 months from the date of approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs of this resolution. That the interest payable on the borrowing be paid at a rate to be agreed upon, and that the amount borrowed be repaid from the proceeds of the debentures when sold. Do I have to read the little box too? No.
So
So moved.
it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Or would you like her to repeat that? Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daphne. Any further discussion or question? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now there's another recommendation there. We're prepared to
Thankfully,
move.
this one does not need to be read out in full. But this is the one to actually secure the debenture for the town.
That's the one that the mayor and municipal clerk signed. So does someone want to read that one out?
You don't have to read this one in full, your worship, just that motion that's included in the agenda. Do you want me to read that one out?
I think whoever makes the motion has to read the motion out loud according to, I think, the MGA. So just whoever, whichever, it's just a short motion. It's just that little paragraph basically. So, okay, Councillor Babineau.
Sure. I move that council authorizes the mayor and municipal clerk to sign the resolution for pre-approval of debenture issue subject to interest rate confirmation not to exceed 7% to enable the town of Lunenburg to secure debenture of $2,009,642 per Schedule 2.
It's removed. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. So now we move on to 8.5, which 8.6. Yes, I got it. 8.6. Lisa?
Sorry, I muted myself. These ones are the same similar item to the electric utility, but these are two items for the town. One is securing the financing around the fire truck, and the other is the temporary borrowing approval for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade that is currently underway. There are those two long motions that need to be read out as well.
Okay, so now there's Schedule 1 and Schedule 3 that have really long motions. Who wants to make the first one? Councillor Daphne?
The council approve a temporary borrowing resolution for the financing of fire number 6 pumper for spring 2026 debenture issue application per Schedule 1.
Now you have to read Schedule 1, unfortunately.
The rest?
You have to read the whole, no, you have to read Schedule 1.
Mrs. Kelly will be so happy. The council authorized the mayor and the municipal clerk. No?
Oh, no, you.
Oh, no.
No, this is much longer.
That's why I said it's you. Ugh, Mrs. Kelly, what have you done to me? Start there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, settle back, folks, with your popcorn. Whereas Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act provides that the Council of the Town of Lunenburg, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, may borrow to expend funds for a capital purpose as authorized by statute. Whereas the Council of the Town of Lunenburg has adopted a capital budget for this fiscal year as required by Section 65 of the Municipal Government Act and are so authorized to expend funds for a capital purpose as identified in their capital budget. And whereas the Council of the Town of Lunenburg has determined to borrow for the purposes of fire number 6 pumper truck. Be it therefore resolved that, under the authority of Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act, the Council of the Town of Lunenburg borrow a sum or sums not exceeding $219,000 for the purpose set out above, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. That the sum be borrowed by the issue and sale of debentures of the Council of the Town of Lunenburg to such an amount as the Council deems necessary. That the issue of debentures be postponed pursuant to Section 92 of the Municipal Government Act, and that the Council borrow from time to time a sum or sums not exceeding $219,000 in total from any chartered bank or trust company doing business in Nova Scotia. That the sum be borrowed for a period not exceeding 12 months from the date of approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs of this resolution. That the interest payable on the borrowing be paid at a rate to be agreed upon, and that the amount borrowed be repaid from the proceeds of the debentures when sold.
So it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now, the next recommendation is just the red one there in front of us. So who wants to read that one off? Councillor Fullerton?
This recommendation is that council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to sign the resolution for pre-approval of debenture issuance subject to interest rate confirmation not to exceed 7% to enable the town of Lunenburg to secure a debenture of $219,000 per Schedule 2.
Been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Babineau. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now we have another short one. Who wants to take a shot at that one? Councillor Fullerton.
Okay, this temporary borrowing resolution is $2,597,500 for wastewater treatment plant upgrade to SBR. Whereas Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act provides that the Council of the Town of Lunenburg, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, may borrow to expend funds for a capital purpose as authorized by statute. Whereas the Council of the Town of Lunenburg has adopted a capital budget for this fiscal year as required by Section 65 of the Municipal Government Act and are so authorized to expend funds for capital purposes identified in their capital budget. And whereas the Council of the Town of Lunenburg has determined to borrow for the purposes of wastewater treatment plant upgrade to SBR, be it therefore resolved that under the authority of Section 66 of the Municipal Government Act, the Council of the Town of Lunenburg borrow a sum or sums not exceeding $2,597,500 for the purpose set out above, subject to the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. That the sum be borrowed by the issue and sale of debentures of the Council of the Town of Lunenburg to such an amount as the Council deems necessary. That the issue of debentures be postponed pursuant to Section 92 of the Municipal Government Act, and that the council borrow from time to time a sum or sums not exceeding $2,597,500 in total from any chartered bank or trust company doing business in Nova Scotia. That the sum be borrowed for a period not exceeding 12 months from the date of approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs of this resolution, that the interest payable on the borrowing be paid at a rate to be agreed upon, and that the amount borrowed be repaid from the proceeds of the debentures when sold.
Thank you. So it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we're moving on. I already did this, but I guess we'll do it again in the agenda. Number 9.
So through you, Chair, just as clarification, the first one was on just the budget. This is your general course or your general request for anything else.
This is actually the 3 minutes that you can get up and speak on any municipal thing you'd like. It's basically the public participation session that we normally have at the very beginning of every meeting, but where this was a budget meeting and then a council meeting. It's now this far down. So if anybody would like to get up to the podium and say anything, you're more than welcome at this time. You have 3 minutes. There was no one signed up on the list, so if nobody raises their hand, we'll move on to number 10. Thank you very much. So number 10, correspondence. There's a letter in there from the town of Digby. Do we want to do anything with that, or is it just there for correspondence like the previous correspondence? This is basically up to council to action or not. Deputy Mayor?
I think the topic is of interest and maybe of interest to any people, some members of our citizenship or citizenry, but I don't think that there's anything I would suggest we do in response at this time. Just take it for information.
So anybody else? Nothing else. We'll just move on then. Number 11, there's business arising or unfinished business. So we're into new business already, 12.1. There's a community grant funding request, the Pie Munchers Robotics Team National Event. So there is a report in front of us that we'll get Paul to read out, and then there is a recommendation there. Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I just want to provide clarification. I meant to leave the resolution amount blank just through our processes of review for the actual recommendation, because it should be council making a decision and a recommendation, not necessarily staff on a grant value. But just as for background reference here, we did receive a letter request from the Pie Munchers group, the robotics team that's heading to the national event at Brock University in June. They've been doing a fundraising campaign through GoFundMe and seeking support. So they're looking to raise $12,000 to go for the full event. From that, council has options if you wish to look at providing them grant funding now, or you can look at deferring as we're looking to take in the grant intake by the end of April for the new round. So I'll put it back to council if you want to address this now or wait.
Thank you. I guess thank you for that. I mean, it's a very exciting time for these young students. My suggestion would be that we forward this to the grant procedure. We are trying to put a grant policy together, and we do have to discuss the grants by the end of April, like Paul said. So our grants will be hopefully approved before these young folks go on their trip. So again, I fully feel that we'll support them. But to what level, I have no idea. But I think if someone wants to make a motion to move it to the grant process, that would be great.
Write it in my head. I move to defer the community grant funding request from the Pie Munchers Robotics Team to the next meeting or do we have a date for a meeting? To the grant committee or whatever is happening there, I guess, grant committee, for a decision by April.
Through you, Chair, but we're putting a deadline of April 30th, so a recommendation would come sometime in May to council, so that still leave time for.
To May.
Yes.
It's removed. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor?
I would just, I guess for further clarification, suggest that yes, that it's not just the moving it to for time, but that it be included in the discussions of how we distribute grants to all of those who apply for this coming budget year. But second the motion that it be referred to that process.
It's moved and seconded. Any further comment? Councilor Babineau.
I just have a question. It does state here that we do have funds remaining in this year's grant budget. Are those going to roll into next year's?
Through you, Chair, our budget's zero out and you start a new budget. So the funds are there, but it would basically go back into general and then your new budget takes effect.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now we have 12.2 recommendation in front of us. Tyson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So second report tonight, have the solid waste disposal agreement with the district of the municipality of Chester to bring to council. So the recommendation is the council approve the new agreement for solid waste disposal with the district of the municipality of Chester at their Kaiser Meadows solid waste management facility. So background, the town has had a relationship for quite some time with MODC, where our solid waste gets taken to Kaiser Meadows out on the Windsor Road. So the existing agreement ends on March 31st, so coming towards the end. MODC has offered the town of Lunenburg a new agreement. The essence of the agreement is very similar to the previous one. The new agreement, the main change in the new agreement is with our blue bag materials going to Why Not settlement under the circular materials agreement. This new agreement would run for 10 years, so up to March 31, 2036, with the option for the town to terminate at the 5-year mark and the 10-year mark with 6 months notice to MODC. Based on the level of service we're given at MODC and the options that we have, staff are recommending to enter the new agreement. That basically covers the report, but if there are questions, I can answer them.
Anybody around the table? I have, I guess, one. So MJSB has been after us for quite some time. They want to meet and they'd like us to consider joining them, which for those that don't know what MJSB is, it's Municipal Joint Services Board. And Why Not settlement is a big component of MJSB. In fact, that's, I think, how MJSB initially started. It was through Why Not settlement and then it expanded into some other services. So I see we can pull out in 5 years, which is great with 6 months notice. So is there a penalty or is there an opportunity for us to pull out earlier if this council decided in future that we wanted to join MJSB, or would we just have to join MJSB, which I'm fine with either way, and just have the Why Not settlement part out of it?
Through the chair, the agreement does define these options to the town. So I would suggest it gives us the option at that 5-year mark potentially. That's or the 10-year mark. So.
Okay, no, that's great. Paul?
And through you, Chair, there is a process to look at MJSB. The council will probably take the time to review what services are available, as it's not just solid waste. There's multiple levels, and to what extent we would want to participate as the town. So I think it gives some breathing room to look at those options. And then within a deciding factor, I think a 5-year agreement is reasonable, at least for a turnover to look at options, decide where you want to join. And if you want to go further, at that point, we can reassess.
No, I'm not questioning that. Yeah, thank you, because I think we have a great deal with, agreement with Chester, and I have no complaints. I know that since this council was elected, MJSB have been, after staff and some of us at different meetings about possibly making a presentation here. So we just want to make sure we know ourselves around the table that the original big component of MJSB was why not settlement. So we would not be able to join in that level. And I'm fine with that, but we should, they should know that before we sit around the table with them. So again, those are just my questions or comments. Is someone prepared to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Fullerton. You actually have to read it out. Please.
As a member of the first committee for the Kaiser Meadows Landfill Monitoring Committee, yes, I'm happy to move this recommendation that council approve the new agreement for solid waste disposal with the district of the municipality of Chester at their Kaiser Meadows Solid Waste Management Facility.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion or questions on the motion? Deputy Mayor?
No questions, just comments. Just wanted to say that it's always a pleasant surprise or a nice feature when there's a reduction in expenses made possible by the arrangement we have now for recyclables. So just a bonus there, but happy to second the motion.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Okay, so that's it for the heavy stuff tonight. Now we'll move on to 13. Notice of motions, information requests, and council reports. We'll start to the right this time. So Councillor Strong.
Just a word of caution here. I've been sitting here in hearings for the last 2 days, so I might make this quick, which you will appreciate. I'll start though with the fact that, and I won't name any names because I don't have any information in front of me. The town was visited by 3 high-level representatives from Parks Canada 2 weeks ago on a rainy Thursday day. You couldn't have picked a worse day, except it wasn't snowing. I had the pleasure, as the mayor and deputy mayor, of going to several sites in the town that are National Historic sites, and this was the first time that these parks employees had been in there. We were met at every site by either an employee at the Fisheries Museum, which is not a National Historic site, did have Adrian Morrison, the archivist and curator, took us on a tour of it, which was fascinating for me too, because there's always something to learn at the Fisheries Museum. Then we went up to Knout Ruland House, which is another site that Parks Canada had not personally visited since it was deemed a National Historic Site. And I'll tell you, the local volunteer talent in this town was shining. They brought us through, took us upstairs, explained the grid of the town from their diorama upstairs, and the folks from Parks Canada were very engaged. We moved on from there to the St. John's Anglican Church. Again, Lunenburg was shining. The 2 volunteers that met us took us on a tour that I've never been on. Probably it would cost about $200 to go on a tour like that. We went down into the basement of the National Historic Site and got to see some interesting and fascinating things there. Then my part of the journey ended at the Lunenburg Academy, where we had an impromptu recital by Ian Thomas at the LAMP site on the 3rd floor, and a tour of the library and all of its beauty. Again, the volunteers that popped out of the woodwork that we weren't expecting to be on the tour really made this town shine. And that was it from me. I'm sure that the mayor will have something more to say about it at a different time. But then I wanted to throw in the plug that on Wednesday, tomorrow night, Lunenburg Academy Foundation is having its annual general meeting at 6 o'clock. I'll be sitting in the front of the room, probably the one with the big bags under our eyes. And Friday, we return to Chambers for the last day of hearing for the Solitaire appeal of the town. And it's dry. It's like watching paint dry. But I've learned a lot about municipal planning. If you have the time, drop in. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Daphne.
Just something really fast. I want to thank Mrs. Ann Kelly, longtime resident on Colback Street in the Gray House, for being my very good English teacher in grades 4 and 5, I think, Jamie. 4 and 5, I don't know. That's like 70 years ago. Sorry, Mrs. Kelly. But you were very good. I got through my little wording speech tonight, and I owe it all to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Just further on the what's happening in Lunenburg, kind of just mentioning the fact that the Jennifer Collins Classic is this weekend. The Lunenburg Schooners take to the ice, and it is the 50th anniversary of that team's existence. So I think that's a pretty a big accomplishment. But there'll be lots of teams and exciting action throughout the weekend. In addition to the Academy Foundation AGM, the Lunenburg Food Bank Society also has their AGM this coming Wednesday in the morning. And I'm very much looking forward to spending some quality time with my colleagues in our strategic planning discussions this weekend.
Thank you. Councillor Fullerton.
Looking forward to the strategy session, and that's really all I had to say.
Councillor Babineau.
You guys stole my line. I have nothing to report.
Yeah, I have a few things. First, I'd just like to start by once again quickly mentioning the Parks Canada visit. It was very positive. It was a great visit, and they love Lunenburg. It's always very positive when you can see federal bureaucrats who help make decisions on things actually come to your town and see the charm and the beauty that we actually have here. Like I said, they were very impressed. We had a very positive meeting, and we're trying to convince them to make it an annual trip, but who knows if that happens or not. I think it's important that they do have a presence here more than they were in the past. So again, very positive. On another very positive note, the JCC Jennifer Collins Classic is this weekend, like the Deputy Mayor said. Unfortunately, we have a team in it, the Lads. It's our 4th anniversary this year of the Lunenburg Lads, and we're actually playing the home opener. It's the tournament opener, they're calling it, at 5:15 Friday night against the Riverport Ramblers. So there'll be a lot of locals, both from here in the surrounding area in that game. So if you want to come out and cheer on some young fellows and some old fellows, that's the game to come to. So, and then lastly, I just want to say, on not such a positive note, that Facebook has been very active in the last 4 or 5 days, and not in a nice way or a positive way by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, there was some very derogatory and accusational comments made towards some of us around this table, myself in general, and just to let you know that that won't be tolerated moving forward on any of us. We've all put our name on a ballot to serve the community, and you might not like our decisions sometimes, you might not like what we do, but opinions are allowed, and we can agree to disagree on things. But what was posted on social media, there were 5 or 6 posts, quite frankly, were very inappropriate, and I don't even know what to call them, because it was statements made that was just unbelievable. So again, there will be action taken moving forward. We do have legal, and we will be using it when necessary. Again, use social media what it was intended for and its intended purpose. If you really feel strongly about something, or you really want to say something like that about any of us around the table, I invite you to come here at the podium and have your say, and we'll deal with it that way. But hiding behind a keyboard is no way to deal with these things. So again, I want to just say that nobody around this table has, including staff, has, just agreed to work in government or has put their name on a ballot to be part of government to be treated like this. We all have friends and family in this community, and it's totally unacceptable. So moving forward, we'll be very strong with our actions, do whatever we can do legally to stop this type of behavior on social media. So again, this seems to be a broken record. It almost seems like every meeting lately I'm talking about social media posts. But again, this one has definitely crossed the line into legal territory. So again, I just want to say that it's been a long 5-6 days for some of us, and look forward to moving on in a positive manner. So nothing more. We'll move on there's no items to consider for committee of the whole at this time. If you have any, you can send it to staff, and we'll make sure it gets added to a committee of the whole agenda. Motion action list we reviewed recently. Happy to say there are no closed session items tonight. So a motion for adjournment is in order. Moved by Councilor Strong, seconded by Councilor Babineau. Thank you very much, folks, for attending tonight.